Gonna go live now. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, you're ready to go live?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Pauline Proch, Chair of Nantucket School Committee, and welcome to the Nantucket School Committee meeting, April 15th, 2021. Before I open the meeting, I'd like to give folks who are planning to have public comment time to get onto the Zoom meeting. In order to make a public comment tonight, you will need to access the link either on the government, the town site, or Nantucket Public Schools site, and you will see the link to access for the Zoom. You will be asked to enter your name and your email address, and then through Channel 18's access, they will bring you into the meeting. You will not have access to your microphone until it is released here during public comment through Jen Erickson. So I am always trying to speak slowly so that this process can happen in time for everybody to be able to access this for public comment. And something has happened here. I apologize. Something has happened. Okay, sorry, everybody. I just realized that I was muted for my whole welcome to everybody. So I will begin again. My name is Pauline Proch. I am the chair for the school committee, and I'm welcoming you to the school committee meeting for April 5th, 2021. As usual, prior to our meeting opening, I do like to give folks time to sign on if they are joining the meeting for public comment. In order to make public comment, you will need to go onto the Town of Nantucket site or Nantucket School website and access the school committee meeting through the YouTube link. Nantucket Channel 18 will give you access, and then you will be able to join as a participant into the meeting. And at that point, Jen Erickson will be able to bring you on at the appropriate time for comment. And sorry, everybody, I am going to now open up the meeting. I just try to buy a little bit of time for our public to join the meeting for public comment. This is Pauline Proch, Chair of Nantucket School Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons who are anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jennifer Iller.
Present.
Thank you. Zona Butler.
Present.
Thank you. Steve Sotovic.
Affirmative.
Thank you. Tim Lepre.
Present. Present.
Thank you. And Amanda Mack. Has Amanda joined us? No. Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. School Committee Clerk Logan O'Connor.
Here.
Thank you. Director of Technology Jennifer Erickson.
Here.
Thank you. Nantucket High School students Maisie Cocker.
Here.
Hi, Maisie. John Carl McGrady. Is John Carl with us? Maybe not at this moment. Okay. Veritas Advisor Paige Martineau.
Here.
Thank you. For the English Language Parents Advisory Committee tonight, do we have Doris Avila? If you are there, could you please unmute and just say you're here?
Hello, she's having a hard time signing in. I'm helping her now. So come back
Thank
to
you.
us, please.
I
Thanks.
certainly will. Kailini de Lima Diaz.
Here.
welcome. Maria Rubina,
Present.
thank you, welcome. For the Special Needs Advisory Council, Co-Chair Laura Steele,
I'm here. I'm here.
welcome. Kristen Tessort,
I'm not sure if they ended up joining. They expressed an interest, but I'm not seeing really anybody else from my group here yet tonight.
okay, so Allison Johnson and Jean Witt.
No, I don't think she could make it after all.
Okay, terrific, thank you. And Kelly, if you could let me know when Doris has joined us, I will just make sure that she can come in. And Channel 18, we do have
Okay.
Doris Avila trying to come in, and she is a panelist. So perhaps we could look out for Doris, please, so she can join and have access to the microphone. Thank you. This open meeting of Nantucket School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, Nantucket School Committee is convening by video conference via Zoom webinar app, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. I'd like to open tonight's meeting by asking for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Tim. Zona, may I have your vote, please?
Aye. Butler.
Jen? Ella?
Aye.
Thank you, Jen. Tim?
Aye.
Thank you, Steve.
Aye.
Thank you. And Pauline Proch, aye. Thank you. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'd like to go to the first item on the agenda, which is public comments from the public. Jen, do we have anybody with us that has shown that they would like to have public comment? No. Okay. All right. So seeing no comments from,
Excuse me for 1 minute. I believe
Yes.
Kelly has texted me that she has joined.
Doris Avila has joined. Is that correct? Okay. So Doris, I'm going to call your name and I would just ask you to unmute and just say here. That way we can make sure that you can hear us and we can hear you. Doris Avila, are you present?
Hi, you can hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Okay, I'm
Great.
sorry.
That's okay. I'll just ask you to mute for now, just so we don't get any background noise from those who are not presenting, but we'll be calling on you shortly. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to move to the superintendent's report. And first, under the report, we're going to hear from both principals, Horton and Vassal from CPS and Nantucket High School. So Mike, would you like to go first?
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Hallett asked myself and Manny Vassal to report on our return to school plans. You may all be aware that NES and NIS return to full in-person school last week on April 5th. Middle schools across the state are scheduled to return fully to school in person after the vacation on Wednesday, April 28th. It is optional for parents. In other words, if a student in remote and cohort D would like to stay in cohort D, they can do that for the rest of this year. But now we are open fully for in-person learning for anyone who wants to come to school in person. As you can imagine, that puts some pressure on our schedules, class sizes, lunch, and we've spent the past month working on that. We started with our schedule committee and basically decided, do we want to test out our team schedule model that we have planned for next year? Or do we want to kind of roll forward as is? And I was really thrilled that the team together decided to roll forward with the least amount of disruption as possible in this, third, fourth, fifth transition within this exceptional year. So what that means is that most students will just stay in their pods as is with the same course sequences and schedules. They will have the same encores for these last 2 months of the year. We're not going to all of a sudden say, hey, you have Spanish for May and June, or you have art for May and June, when students have not had these courses all year. The biggest challenge is really the hybrid students, because our cohort A students pretty much stay as is with their in-person teachers that they have been working with all year. Our cohort D students who are now opting to come in person will now be in person with the teachers they've known the entire year. In other words, we didn't want to move students to have brand new teachers for the last 2 months of the year. But when we had 16 students in each room, now we're pushing to 23, 24, you can see that the students in the middle who are in the B and C cohorts, some of them will be added to the cohort A pods, and some of them will go with what was considered the remote pods with the 2-person team of teachers. So some BC kids are added with the team of 4, and some BC kids are added to the team of 2. This works because the hybrid students have experienced both teachers all year. In other words, they've had 2 days a week with the in-person teachers and 2 days a week with the remote teachers. The other big challenge is lunch. You may be familiar with the guidelines and regulations that during lunchtime, students still have to be 6 feet. The reason why we can take in all 422, 23 students from CPS on April 28th is that now the spaces between chairs has been reduced from 6 feet down to 3 feet. This is how we're able to increase class sizes. But when students take off their masks and they're eating at lunchtime, they still have to be 6 feet. So if you have 23, 24 students in a room, they don't all fit now when they take their masks off to eat lunch, because they'd have to be at 6 feet. So some students will stay in the room and some students will head to the cafeteria and will utilize that space. We obviously can't get 150 students in the caf, but we can get close to 1/3 of those students, around 40 students in the cafeteria. That was the biggest challenge, was actually figuring out the details around lunch. I really have to thank all the team leaders, all of our teacher assistants, our special educators, our EL teachers. This has been a month-long process to get to what I feel is a fairly simple plan to return to school on April 28th with the least amount of disruption. And I'm really fortunate, or CPS is really fortunate, that we're doing this after April vacation. That gives us another kind of buffer of time to check desk capacities, the furniture, some of those logistics. I don't know how NES and NIS did it on that Monday, April 5th. So we're kind of blessed that we have another week buffer to put this plan in place.
Thank you, Michael. We'll go to Mandy and then I will ask the committee for any comments or questions, if that's okay. Mandy?
Hi, thank you. Many of my comments are going to be very similar to Mr. Horton's. We just were able, or Dr. Hallett was just able to give us a return date for the high school. The decision's been made that we will be returning full in person at the high school on May 5th. So we're excited to have a date confirmed now, and we know what we're working with. And so we have also begun the process of what do we need to do to welcome the, all of our students at the same time in our building all 5 days. We have made an adjustment to our Wednesday schedule that we will be sharing with parents and students because students will now be coming to school half day instead of being remote on Wednesdays. We have, so a couple of the numbers that I feel pretty good about, and I believe our teachers feel good about, is that we have approximately 40% of our students in cohort A now. So we have over 200 students in cohort A, which means they come 4 days a week. So, transitioning to bring the rest of our students in should be a little easier just because we do have that many students already in the building. And we've gotten nothing but, reports from students and parents about how happy they are that their students are in 4 days a week. And I want to say thank you to our parents and to our teachers and students for helping with our full return survey. We had approximately 85% return rate on parents and students who responded to our survey. So it helps us to know which students are going to remain in cohort D, because that makes a huge difference as to how many students will be, we need to plan in the classroom. One thing that is really great for the high school is that over half of our classrooms won't need additional desk or seats in order to accommodate the return of our students. And so I've already, talked with facilities, with Demo and Francisco on the desks that we need and how we're going to be able to get those into the building. We're expecting about 14% of our students will stay in cohort D for various reasons. And like Mr. Horton said, that is the parents' choice. And many of the parents have already reached out and explained why they felt like they wanted to keep their student in cohort D. And fortunately for us at the high school, this isn't much of a change for us because we've continued that way continuously. So we don't believe, we're not making a lot of changes with our schedule. Like I said, Wednesday, returning to in-person as opposed to remote is really the only change that is really happening for us, that and adding the additional students. One thing that has come up that's a priority for us, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this now, is that we want to make sure that our parents and our students are talking and keeping at the forefront that safety protocols are going to be of the utmost importance and that we follow those. We all get a little bit lazy now and then. Sometimes I forget that I had taken a mask break and walk out of my office. So, and that's easy to do for everyone, but this is like really important because we're going to have more students in the building, that we're all very careful and that we're making sure that we're following those safety protocols. We're also working with lunch, and I really appreciate the work that our teachers did this past week during our EWD, where we took a look at our list of cohort D students. We do have some concerns for some of those students that we feel like they're going to be better served by being in person, and we will be reaching out to those parents over the next few days. And we are working out the plan we will have some classrooms that not all students can eat in the classroom. So we will be using the cafeteria for overflow and potentially some other areas in the building that we're working out. So, but we feel pretty good about it. And I think our numbers look really good for our classes.
That's great. Thank you, Mandy. Jen Erickson had shared with me prior to the meeting that you have a slide that you would like to share, and I'm just wondering if this is the appropriate time, if you'd like to, while you're presenting, to follow up on some information that we'd asked at the last meeting.
Yes, I can do that now if you like.
That would be great. Thank you.
It should not say dropout rate. I apologize. That was a mistake. I just used my same slides and updated them. So what we're looking at are is our senior class. This year we have 109 seniors. And of those 109 seniors, we have 69 seniors who have applied to post-secondary schools. 40 of the seniors have reported being accepted to at least one of their choices. And I say being reported because as I went through the list myself, I know, especially having worked with the Nantucket Golf Club Scholarship Committee, that I saw students on the list that had applied to schools that have gotten or have received acceptances, but they were not on the number of 40. So I believe that 40 is probably a little bit higher, more like 43 to 45, but I can confirm that. So what they do in guidance, and I appreciate Stacy Fasaro keeping the records that she does, is students self-report when they've received the acceptances. So when they do that, it goes on the new list that they have accepted. So at this time, we have, so to look at the breakdown, the demographic breakdown of our senior class, we have 5.5% ELs, 8.3% who are FLEP, 11% special ed, 15.5% who are on 504 plans, and 26.6% who are considered low income. 63.3% white, 14.7% Black, 17.4% Hispanic, 2.7% Asian, and I think that's Nepalese. I think that's how you say it. And 0.9% mixed race. So it is a rather small senior class this year. And here's a breakdown of the students who have submitted the applications. I found it interesting that 24% of our students were low income, and that 75% were white. I think if you compared the numbers a little bit, they're pretty close to the overall demographic breakdown. 11.6% Black, 5.8% Hispanic, 7.2% Asian, and 1.4% mixed race. Only 1.4% ELs and 5.7% FLEP. That certainly tells me that we have some work to do in that area. And I think that we have identified that previously and have started talking about some strategies that we'd like to put in place in order to reach out to our EL families and talk about the importance of thinking about secondary education. For the 40 students who have accepted or have received acceptances, 0% ELs, 7.5% FLEP, 5% special ed, 25% on our 504 plans, 24.6% low income, 80% white, 5% Black, 5% Hispanic, 7.5% Asian, and 2.5% mixed race. So I think when you look at the statistics breakdown like this, it certainly means that we have work to do. We had, so 69 out of 109, I apologize, I had that number previously. The students who did not apply or have not received acceptances, I'm told through guidance that we do have a few of those students, and I don't have an accurate number, I apologize, who are planning to attend a tech school after graduation, and many have already made the decision to enter the workforce.
I really appreciate you coming back and sharing that information. And I just want to say thank you to Mrs. Fasaro and Mrs. Johnson, because I know that they both had to pull this out of the reports. And thank you, Ms. Fassel, for working with that, because I was impressed last meeting that the counselors could give the percentage pretty quickly of students that had already applied. But my mind always goes to, well, what about the 40% of students, or whatever the number of students is, that haven't applied? What are their plans? And then also I appreciate you getting the demographics, because that tells us a clearer story than 61% of the students have already applied to college. And I agree, we do have work to be done, but without sharing this information and talking about this information, we don't know where the gaps are, and we don't know where we can improve. So I appreciate you coming back.
Yes, thank you. And I completely agree. And Ms. Cooney and I were talking earlier today, and we were both strategizing and talking about how we have to really start earlier in the school year, and talking with our students and talking with our families on not just going to college, but what are your post-secondary plans? Because not all students are meant to go to college. There's certainly other avenues that they could take. And even if they are entering the workforce, I think it would be beneficial for our students if we talk about, like, what kind of after high school training are you getting to support that decision? Because I think that there are options out there for that as well. And I think it's really important.
Yep, and I agree. I think even talking as early as middle school is, a good way to go, to start sharing the options out there. So thank you. Let me please go to Zona for questions and comments for Mike and for yourself. Zona, we can't hear you. It doesn't look like you're muted, but your sound is off. Cannot hear you at the moment. So I think we'll wait for Zona to come back. Tim, comments, please, or questions?
Well, I think it's about time. And it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But I mean, we've been out too long, and we got to get back to reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Steve?
Yeah, I'll echo what Tim just said. It's time to be back. And my understanding is that most everybody's comfortable. I have a few questions, but I would want to emphasize, and I know you are, the safety protocols. Mr. Santa Maria spoke to the select board yesterday about the variants that are appearing on Nantucket. We know we have the B117, which is the most transmissible, but we've got a couple of other variants too. And even people who have been properly inoculated or have previously had COVID can get some of these things. So please do continue to press those protocols. I appreciate the awareness of it. Couple of questions, Mike. You must have an idea how many of your remote students have returned and how many of the non-remotes are now going remote. How is that looking by percentages?
Yeah, so it's about 9% of an entire grade level is staying remote. So, that's 6 to 9 kids at each grade level. That's about 1/3 of the 20 to 30 that have been remote all year. And
That was my next question. Good, thanks.
Yep. And you have a great point there. If I just add on to that, these are the students who are returning in person for the first time. They're the students we have to walk through the protocols with, because they haven't had them yet.
oops. And I just wanted confirmation of something I think you said at the last meeting, which is those students who are remaining remote are going to be participating in in-person classes?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I had to clarify this week to parents in my update that what they've become used to, where there was a designated remote teacher that worked like this, one-on-one, sitting face-to-face at a desk, it's going to be different now that our remote teachers, we need them to be in person with all the kids who are now coming in person. So students choosing to stay remote, they are now remoting in to classes that are already existing up and running in person. So they're added in as a, another, box window on a laptop that the teacher in the classroom will have students in front of them in person, 23, 24, and another 3 or 4 at home remote.
I'm glad to hear it's just 3 or 4. Thanks, Mike. Mandy, couple of positive comments first. If I can I have my cell phone to keep notes. I don't want you to think I'm texting or emailing anyone. I'm delighted with the phrase reaching out. And it seems you're doing it with certain students that you feel should be in person, in particular, who apparently have selected to be remote. I commend that. And to ELLs as well. As I said, the phrase reaching out is important, and I commend you for that. And also for recognizing the areas, and I think Chairperson Proch already said this, but noting areas where you need to dive deeper, to improve performance. Questions relate to trade, tech, apprenticeships, whatever you want to call them. Did you have a number of students who have applied to or are planning to go to some kind of tech schools?
I do have, thank you, Steve, for that question, because I think that that's just as important as our college acceptances. So I did receive information today that there are 2 confirmed students who are going to a tech school. And I actually just got a message that 2 of our students have confirmed that they're going to the military. So I think that's, but should not be omitted as well, because I think that's really
important. Yeah, because
important.
I think we need to be careful not to denigrate choices that aren't, quote, college, end quote. I mean, there are good livings to be made out there, and certain students will fit those beautifully. So
totally agree. Thank you.
Those were my notes and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Jen.
So I have Zona's questions here. She texted, so I'll go off Zona's questions first. This is for Mandy, I believe. Is the 40 out of 69 or 109?
40 of the ones who have accepted or been accepted for college applications.
Yes,
Yeah, it's 40 of the 69. Yes, ma'am.
40 of the 69. The numbers are so small, 109. So I would have liked to see, or Zona would like to see the number of students instead of the percentages, instead of trying to figure out what the percentage is based off of.
I have those.
If that's an option to get that to us at a later time.
I have those now if you want, or I can send them either way.
Email them?
I can email them.
Email them? I'm good. I'm good at lip reading. Okay. Let us know where and what the others are doing. Steve just sort of asked that question.
Okay.
The ratios of black to white is what we have known it to be forever. So I would just like to know what the real numbers are. So hopefully I asked that question correctly. Okay.
I can absolutely follow up with that.
Thank you. So I just want to thank you both. I know this is incredibly challenging to figure out how to keep everyone safe and how to, keep everyone in person learning in a safe capacity. I really don't have any questions for you, Mike. I want to piggyback on Mandy's conversation. And I've really had a lot of thoughts lately about, as having a senior, what we could do for our seniors to help them. And I would love to be able to find a way to our guidance counselors. I feel like they have so much work and so many responsibilities throughout their 9th through 12th grade, that I would love to see a position of somebody who is just working with the senior students and figuring out what their goals are for graduation. And if it's college, help them figure out FAFSA and application process and scholarships. And if it's it's vocational, help them figure out that the process of applying. If it's career oriented, right out of school, just helping our students learn how to write resumes, apply for jobs. Having someone dedicated for that position is something that I would like to see our school provide for our students, because it's essential. I mean, they're graduating, they're going off on their own, and they really need that extra support. So I would love to see funding for somebody to help our senior staffs, working with them from the beginning of the school year to the end, figuring out, what their next steps are going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And so Zona, your questions were asked, right? Through Jen. So we're okay. Okay, moving on. And again, my questions have been already asked through the committee. So thank you both, Michael and Mandy. I know it is a daunting time, but I think we've got the protocols in place. There was a lot of work that was done, keeping students safe, staff safe. And so I kudos to you all for keeping with it. And I wish you the best as we open up our schools fully. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. I do have one last thing to ask Mandy, if I could.
Yes,
Is that all
please.
right? Okay.
Yes.
About the survey, can you tell us just a little bit more about that? Was there only one question asked of the parents, or were there several? And did you get much side commenting when you reached out to the parents? I'm just curious.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The survey was asking whether or not parents were planning for their students to attend remote or all in person or stay in cohort D, and which cohort they were in at the time, so that we could kind of take a look at that. And then they were able to provide comments. I'm happy to say that most of the comments that came were parents saying how happy they were that we were going back full in person. There are a couple of comments of concerns for safety. There's a couple of comments of what's going to happen with lunches. There were a couple of comments on, will the schedule be changing? And quite a few comments that said, please keep Wednesdays like they are. And I hate to say I was one of those because the kids all like the Wednesdays like they are, but we're going back in person. So that's just the way it's going to be. One thing that I have done is I have a list of the comments matched up with the parents. And so I will be following up with those parents to address what some of their concerns are.
Thank you, Mandy.
Madam Chair, may I just follow up with a question for Mandy? Are you finding the same as Mike, that the large majority of your formerly fully remote are coming back in person?
So that's a good question, Steve. We're not finding that there's a large amount coming back. Some are. One of the things that we noticed when we looked at the list with the faculty is that some of the students who had been D came into either cohort B or C, have responded to our survey saying now they're going back to D. So those are students in particular that we're going to reach out to and say, why are you making this change? Which I did hear from one parent who, gave me an explanation as to why, and it was for health reasons, which we can completely understand by having more numbers, that there's certainly some anxiety around that, particularly with the variants that you were talking about. But I wouldn't say that it's a large number. It's pretty much what I expected it to be, maybe a little higher. I could rather expected about 10 to 12%, and it's about 14% right now. So last check, after taking out duplicates, we have about 65 students right now staying in cohort D. That, I believe, what may potentially change a little bit.
Thank you.
Thanks. I don't know whether to be depressed about that high number or not.
I'll just follow up with you and say that although we'd love to see all of the kids come in, the ones that are staying cohort D, for the most part, those that I've spoken to or have had email from, they do have really good reasons for staying cohort D. And, and I applaud the parents and the students to make that difficult decision, because I know that, students would really rather be in person.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Mandy, before I let you go, just to go back to your slide presentation, I would very much like to know if we can, by the next meeting, if it's possible, to have the conversations with the remaining 40 students who have not identified officially of what their plans are, because to me that is still a large number of students out of 109 in our senior year. And I would like to see if we can have the conversation with our students to find out if they have a direction. If they do, how did they come to that decision, whether it's workforce or tech school, and how did they get the lead for the technical colleges or vocational programs? And if they're not, I'm not looking, this is certainly not to shame anybody at all, but I do think it is our job to dig deeper and find out. I think sometimes students will use their going to work so that it just backs the adults off so that they can just say, I'm going to work. But it is our job to dig deeper than that and to find out what skills might they need for the job that they are planning to apply for. Because I think with the innovative pathways, that the whole purpose of that program is to allow students who are going into the workforce to perhaps create and have an opportunity to get a certification or a licensing opportunity that would grade them higher than another applicant going for that same position. So, and I do think it's up to us. It's up to us to decide how our counselors spend their time. And if we need to increase that staffing, then we need to do that. But I think we sit and have this conversation. We have, I know you haven't been here, but we have as a school committee in a district multiple times every year. And I still feel like we are in the same situation as we are before, that there are many students that don't apply for financial aid, whether it's through the school or whether it's through local applications, because they don't have the person there to support them. And we all know parents who've had children go through high school, that is, the FAFSA is not an easy process, nor are the applications for scholarships locally. And even though many of us had our own children do that process, many parents do it for their children. And so we need to make that playing field equal and fair and make sure that all students are having access to the applications. So I really would love to continue this conversation because I am bothered by that number of 40.
And I agree. I totally agree, Chairperson Proch. And one thing I can tell you, I don't have the accurate numbers, but just talking with some of the students and our vocational teachers, we do have students who have been in our vocational programs, who that's the field that they're going into. I know one student in particular who's already working with one of the restaurants in town, and that's what he's planning to do after graduation. We have a couple of students who are following their passion for the automotive industry. And I believe there's at least 2 that are going straight into carpentry. So we do have some students that are like that. I spoke to a student the other day who's already working on his apprenticeship for to be an electrician. So we do have some students that have plans, but I will absolutely work with guidance, and we will have those conversations and find out a more accurate number of where our students are going.
That would be great. I appreciate the data. Thank you so much, Andy.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you. Moving on to the second item in the superintendent's report, Dr. Hallett sent me an outline of the superintendent's evaluation. She asked me to read it out for everybody, and then the school committee will need to make some decisions on timelines here. The first item listed is on April 15th, which is today. At the school committee public meeting, a subcommittee will be chosen to compile and draft the superintendent's evaluation. By April 30th, the superintendent will complete a full self-evaluation of the 2020-2021 goals and standards under instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, professional culture, using the end of the cycle summative report and the focus indicators for leading in the 2021 document that is specific to pandemic learning. The district leadership team will provide feedback to the school committee using the end of cycle summative report form and the focus indicators for leading in the 2021 document. And as the school committee is aware that the leadership team will be sending their evaluations to me. And then tonight we will discuss the subcommittee who will be taking the evaluations along with Dr. Hallett's evaluation, and then we will be sending that out to the full committee for their evaluations to take place. By an undetermined date at the moment, the subcommittee, and we will decide this date tonight, the subcommittee will draft and share the superintendent's evaluation with all committee members. The school committee will individually review the superintendent's self-evaluation and feedback from the leadership team to assist in rating the superintendent's performance on the goals and standards. The subcommittee will compose then the final evaluation, and on June 1st at the school committee public meeting, the committee will share their completed evaluation with the superintendent with the members of public. And I will remind those in attendance that the superintendent is the only position in town that actually has a public evaluation. So I'd like to put this out to the school committee. Two things that we need to decide tonight, or I'd like us to decide tonight, is 2 people to volunteer to work on collating the leadership team evaluations and then distributing them out to the committee. So if you just want to unmute and if you'd like to volunteer to take part in that process.
Yeah, Madam Chair, could you give me the dates again?
I can. One wasn't determined, we have to determine it, but by April 30th, we will have received the leadership, district leadership feedback using the end of cycle summative. And then we need to come up with this time, a date, Steve, that the subcommittee will share among us the superintendent's evaluation in time for us to process our own evaluations, and then to give the subcommittee time to put it together in time for the June 1st evaluation. So if you want to work backwards, June 1st is our goal, if you will, of presenting publicly. So going backwards, when would we like to say that we have received copies of the district leadership and the superintendent's evaluation that gives us time to process? Does that help, Steve?
It did answer one of my questions, yes.
Okay.
Didn't mean to suggest it didn't answer other parts of my question, but I thought I heard June 30 in there somewhere, and I wanted to make sure I didn't.
No, it's April 30th. So the final presentation for Dr. Hallett is June 1st.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Can I make a recommendation that we email you if we're interested, and then the subcommittee comes up with the date for the rest of the members?
That's fine. Yes, and then I can make that known to you all. And we do need 2 members of the committee to work on this. So if that's fine, if everybody's fine with emailing me, if they're in. Logan, you have your hand up. You're muted.
Madam Chair, if you decide that that's how you'd like to move with that, you will have to have this then come back on the agenda item for the next meeting so that you can publicly say who is going to be the 2 designees for that committee.
Oh, okay. I'm looking to see, well, that would then bring us to our next meeting, which
May 4th.
May 4th. But presumably those people could, if there are only 2 volunteers, those people could still begin working, and May 4th would be, 25 words or less, just announcing who they are.
No, they need to be determined in public prior to you starting the subcommittee work. Which is
Well,
fine.
I don't understand why that is so.
Because you need to tell the public who is going to be the determined designees for the school committee. So it's fine to do it for May 4th. That's totally fine. But then
I
you'll
don't
have.
think subcommittee would be working before May 4th because we
Correct.
each individually need time to write our own evaluations before the subcommittee works. And there's no way we're going to have that done by May 4th.
Right. You're going to have everything go to the chair on the 30th. So the timing will work. It's just that it'll steamroll into May to be a pretty hefty move along, just so that you're aware that you'll need to have this come to on the agenda for the 4th.
Well, I think we can do that if we've got the 30th as a deadline for the leadership team, and then we have that as a deadline for Dr. Hallett. We will have to then have the subcommittee meet. Well, we'll have to have some days for us to read all of the evaluations in order to get that back. But that does give us 2 weeks, 3 weeks actually, before so I'm okay with that. So we'll just say for the 4th of May that we will need to have determined the subcommittee and it will be on the agenda. Anybody on the committee have other questions or concerns about that timeline?
It just seems like we're going to have to cram a lot into the month of May. If, as Logan is saying, we can't even, and I'm using the we loosely here, cannot even begin to look at materials until May the 4th. It's cramming a lot in.
Well, I will say that if I did want to put it out to the committee first to raise a hand to say that they would be willing to work on this evaluation, if that is something that people feel they are not able to do tonight, I'm fine with the email. I'm also fine to put my hand up and say that I would work on it, but it does need to be a committee of 2.
So to clarify, we're receiving the district leadership evaluations and Dr. Hallett's evaluations on April 30th, around that time. We need time to read all of them, evaluate that, and then start rating our individual evaluations before the subcommittee even meets, compiling all of our individual evaluations together into one. So we have plenty of time if we're announcing the 2 people on May 4th.
I agree. I agree. We have time.
Well, I still think it's tight, but if one of the rest of you would volunteer tonight to join Pauline, then we get a head start.
How about you, Steve? Some of us have done it before. Some has done it several times. And it's not like it's a huge commitment, but my plate is overflowing right now. So I can't make that commitment. I know what it involves.
Okay, so let's leave it that I'm looking for one other person to email to let me know, the timeline. Really the time, having done this many times, the timing is really reading through all of the evaluations that we all have to do in order to help us with our evaluation. Of course, in the past, we have sat and been together to go through the comments and then the rubric for the superintendent, but that can be done as easily over a Zoom meeting. But I appreciate everybody's schedule, so I'm going to just go back to the original suggestion from Jen, which is to have 1 or 2 of you email, and I'm happy to step down, or I'm also happy to participate either way. So we
Yeah,
either,
could I just ask Logan, do you know when our next meeting is off the top of your head after May 4th?
May 20th. You have an extra week.
and then we have the June 1st. Okay, any other questions? Tim, we haven't heard from you. Any other questions on this process? Comments?
No, I've done it several times.
This is one of our main responsibilities, is evaluating our superintendent. So we'll figure it out. You just can email me, and then we'll have the process announced on the 4th of May. If you would just make a note, Logan, to have that part of the agenda, please. All right. And I have started to receive leadership evaluations, just so you know. So they're just going into a folder, and once I have received them all, I will make copies and distribute them to you. And I'll distribute them in person, not via email. Okay, thank you, everybody. Seeing no other comments or questions regarding that, we'll move on to Veritas presentation. It's my pleasure to invite Maisie Cocker, John Carl McGrady, and the advisor for Veritas, Paige Martineau, to join us. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, thank you. We don't have a presentation per se. I think that the 2 editors are going to say a few things about what it's been like to run a school paper during a global pandemic. I will say ahead of time that these 2 have done an amazing job of keeping it going, including writing over the summer, and their commitment has been incredibly impressive. So I don't know if John Carl, if you want to start off.
Sure, thank you. So obviously the biggest challenge we had to navigate, this is my 2nd year as editor-in-chief, Macy's 2. We did this our junior year and now we're seniors. So the biggest challenge we had to navigate this year was obviously the fact that school started completely virtual, and it's still, largely virtual, especially after classes. We can't stay in the building for long periods of time. So we've had to basically move the paper out of the school building. In previous years, we've compiled the paper inside a room in the school building. We have not been able to this year. So in the beginning of the year, we were just using the website, and we have been able to get some computers to compile paper now from home. So we do have a print edition now, but it hasn't, it's been a struggle to get that off the ground and to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? But we've done it, and it's working out well, and it really forced us to develop the website, which has been an issue in the past, has been a weakness for us. So this really forced us to work on that weakness and improve the website. And I am happy to say that month by month over the last 12 months, we have increased the viewership on the website by 2,100%, which is a pretty major jump. And we are up 1,600% over the all-time 12-month peak previously. So the website has really taken off. We've really turned that into probably the main part of the newspaper. We print about 200 copies of the newspaper, and we get closer to 1,000 hits on the website. So that's really taken off for us. And I think that's been it was our main difficulty start of the year, and it's been a main success story as the year has progressed, is we've really been able to make that website work.
That's terrific. Thank you, John. Maisie, you have to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about, it's been difficult at first it was difficult to kind of get new students in, because a lot of the first appeal of Veritas is that we have a couch in our room and like a tea kettle. But we've actually gotten some really, really good writers this year. And I think it's going to be really special next year. And like passing it off is sad, but also really exciting because I think we have some great people. And also we've had some success on the year-round community page, which has been really interesting to see public commentary on some stuff. So yeah, I think it's been a lot of new stuff and new writers and a lot of success despite COVID.
Thank you, Maisie. Paige, do you have any comments you would like to make about the students before we go to comments from the committee?
Sure. I mean, again, I really applaud all of the Veritas students for keeping this going. As Maisie mentioned, one of the big appeals to Veritas is being together as a group, putting out the paper. Press Week has always been an incredible bonding experience. And the fact that we can't, have kids walk into that room and see, us doing the thing, making that paper has been a challenge. But Anne Faniff's journalism class has been a great feeder for the paper in recent years. And, we've gotten a lot of great writers out of that class. So that's been a big support for us. And, we look forward to the day when we can bring all those computers back into school and, create that paper in our room and attract those kids just by being in the school building. They've done an amazing job, and I'm sorry that their last year with the paper, it existed the way it did, but it is what it is, and they've just done an amazing job with it. So I'm really proud of them.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you. Zona, comments, questions?
I don't really have any questions. I thank you for the numbers, John Carl. That was some impressive numbers. And Maisie, I watched these two kids kind of grow up. I remember Maisie. I think I met you when you did your talent show at the Boys and Girls Club when you were teeny tiny. And John Carl, of course, we've gone to the same church for a few years when his mother was our pastor. So I've watched him grow as well. You guys are awesome. I'm sure you're going to make wonderful headlines in life. So keep up the good work. Be encouraged and always be true to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Zona. Jen?
No questions, but I just have to say congratulations. During these challenging times, you guys have really pulled off an amazing feat, and the paper is better than ever. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Steve?
Yeah, you guys already know I've given you a couple of shout outs this year. What I'm curious about is, and the percentages of hits on the website are obviously awesome, but should I cancel my automatic email subscription so that I have to go to the website and help you push those numbers up even higher? And the second part of that question is, how many of us are there like me who automatically receive all the articles? And when they come to me, they come all at the same time, 18 of them in a row, ding, ding. My cell phone doesn't stop. Are there many others like me, if you know, who are signed up for that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I kind of handle the website side of things, and I wasn't aware that's how that worked. So there's 3 people who are like email subscribers, and now I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize. I thought you guys just got like one notification. It was like the articles are posted, and it wouldn't bother with your 17. But yeah, we don't really have a choice to post them when there's time like that, because we finished the newspaper, and then all the issues for them, all the articles a month are ready to go. So I'm sorry you've been bombarded like that, but
No. I'm not complaining about being bombarded, John
paper
Cowell.
like that, probably because of that issue. But we.
It's fine. Please don't.
No, so no, I
My
mean, I
next
just feel
morning,
bad
after
for
I
the people
receive
who are
all
getting,
those,
even if
is
you're
all
okay
laid
with it, I
out,
feel bad
so
people
it's
who are
great.
getting that. So, but yeah, there's only 3
that
people that are
is-
getting that. But don't worry about like the numbers, because we get those hits. So if you open the email, you read that article, that's still registered as our stats. So
Oh, good. In the meantime, my positive comment or comments are depth and breadth. You folks are covering everything that should be covered. You're doing it in depth, and I'm delighted that you're not afraid to speak truth to the issues.
thank you so much, and I'm sorry I interrupted you. I think my Wi-Fi is lagging a little.
Thank you. Tim, comments, questions?
I remember a time before there was Veritas, and I think it has really been a jewel of the school, and I appreciate the work that has gone into it. And thank you very much.
A jewel of
Thank you.
the school.
Thank you,
Hey.
Tim. I think all the comments have been made. I mean, kudos to you for a successful year, and I think watch out, because everyone will be hiring you for their marketing team with the increases that you've shown this year. So you're very hireable. So thank you both, Maisie and John Carl, for joining us tonight, and thank you, Paige, for coming, and thank you for being their advisor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it is my pleasure to invite the parent representatives of the English Language Parent Advisory Committee. And we have tonight with us Doris Avila, Maria Rubina, and Kailini de Lima Diaz. So welcome to you all, and I'm going to let you all decide who's going to be the spokesperson or who's going to speak first, but it's lovely to have you here tonight.
Hello, Jen, Jen Erickson has the link to the Google presentation.
Oh, great. Okay, Kelly, thank
So
you.
that might just take her a minute to put it up
Okay,
for us. You
thank
have it,
you.
Jen? Okay, and Dory will read in Spanish, and then Kailani will read in English, and then at the end, we will have time for questions and answers, and Kailani will translate, she'll interpret.
Thank you.
All right, as Kelly said, I'll be helping with the English part and Doris will be doing the Spanish one. And if I need to translate something for Doris, I will be doing in the first person and just for her introduction and maybe later for answering questions.
Ok. Hola, buenas noches para todos. Mi nombre es Doris Avelar. Soy la presidenta del grupo de Elpac de las escuelas públicas de Nantucket. Estoy muy agradecida porque tengo 2 años de estar al frente de Elpac y pues hemos tenido reuniones de Elpac con la doctora Hallett, con todo el departamento bilingüe y pues como todos sabemos, lo de la pandemia, pues hemos tenido también reuniones y actualizaciones de información sobre el COVID.
Good night, my name is Doris, and I would like to thank you for the meetings that we had with Dr. Hallett. Thank you for the help from the bilingual department at the EL department. And we have been having meetings with the Elpac with information about regarding COVID, giving our community the updates that necessary.
Las regulaciones de Elpac fueron publicadas por el Departamento de Educación Massachusetts como parte de la ley LUC en 2016.
The Elpac regulations were released by the Massachusetts Department of Education as part of the LUC law in 2016.
Next, Kelly, please. Ustedes pueden ver las flechas. Esta es una línea del tiempo de Elpac. El año pasado nos enfocamos principalmente en temas relacionados con el COVID y comenzamos a explorar programas bilingües de lenguaje dual. En febrero de este año 2021 presentamos en el DC Departamento de Educación.
As you can see on the arrows on the slide, this is a timeline of the Elpac. Last year, we focused mostly on COVID-related issues, and we began exploring bilingual dual language programs. And in this year, February of 2021, we presented at DESE, the Department of Education.
Nuestras reuniones fueron, bueno, nuestra última reunión fue en marzo y discutimos las actualizaciones y otros temas.
Our last meeting was in March and we discussed updates and some other topics.
Bueno, durante todo este año de pandemia, nuestras reuniones fueron a través de línea y pues siempre tuvimos el apoyo de 20 familias, siempre tratábamos temas muy importantes, le dábamos a los padres lugar para que ellos nos dijeran sus comentarios y pues bueno, esperamos de que volvamos a poder reunir con los padres nuevamente cara a cara.
For the last year, we have been doing meetings online in this new format because of the pandemic, but we are counting with lots of families participating, and we always give them opportunity to speak and opportunity to tell how they are doing during this pandemic. And we hope to start doing our meetings in person again as soon as possible.
Con los padres nos comunicamos a través de múltiples medios, por ejemplo, correos electrónicos de Aspen, llamadas telefónicas, folletos en papel, en Remind App, Facebook, WhatsApp, o sea que no nos pudimos ver cara a cara, pero sí tratamos la manera de mantener a los padres muy informados. En lo personal, tengo un grupo de WhatsApp en mi teléfono donde siempre les estaba enviando información a cada uno de los padres.
We communicate with multiple media: Aspen email, phone calls, paper flyers, Remind app, Facebook, WhatsApp. Doris, have a WhatsApp group in my phone where I communicate with parents regularly. We can't see each other face to face, but we are always finding a way to communicate with them.
Nantucket Public School, Elpac, para el año escolar de 2020-2021 y más allá, bueno, queremos, ¿verdad?, aprobar los estatutos, que vuelvan a encarrilar con reuniones no relacionadas con el COVID, sino que es algo más diferente, que explorar la programación de lenguaje dual, continuar abogando por los estudiantes multilingües y pues también que ya se nos acercan las elecciones que son en mayo de este año.
NPS Elpac for school year 2020, 2021 and beyond. Approved by laws. Get back on track with non-COVID related meetings. So we have other things to explore. Explore dual language programming, continue to advocate for multilingual students, and the elections in May 2021 are coming.
Okay. Nos gustaría tener un comité para explorar oficialmente el programa bilingüe de lenguaje dual. Nuestros estudiantes necesitan consejeros en la escuela que sean bilingües y biculturales. Realmente necesitamos consejeros en la escuela.
We would like to have a committee to officially explore dual language bilingual program, and also our students need school-based counselors who are bilingual and bicultural. We really need bilingual counselors in our schools.
Bueno, por último, quiero agradecer, ya son 2 años que tengo al frente de Elpac. En mayo de este año termino y pues quiero agradecer a la Dr. Hallett, a Kailani, María, Kelly, que pues ellos siempre han estado pendiente para que el grupo de Elpac tenga el apoyo, y pues también a cada uno de ustedes. Gracias por invitarme a esta reunión. Espero que el próximo presidente pues pueda trabajar también y pues que este grupo siga creciendo, lo que es el grupo de Elpac.
I'd like to thank you. It has been 2 years that I've been president of the Elpac. I but in May of 2021, May of this year, the elections are coming and a new president will be joining. I would like to thank the EL department, Kelly, Maria, Kailani, and thank Dr. Hallett, and thank each one of you. And I believe the next president will be working for this community just as we did.
Una última, también quería mencionar que pues me di cuenta que Esmeralda Martínez se está postulando para poder entrar al comité escolar. Y pues nos sentimos muy, muy felices, ¿verdad? Porque es una persona que apoya a los maestros, que apoya las innovaciones. Bueno, ella está muy interesada en lo que es el postulamiento para el comité escolar y pues me encantaría que ella pudiera, o sea, estamos muy felices de que alguien como ella se postule para lo que es el comité escolar.
I also would like to say that I'm very happy to have Esmeralda running for the school committee, someone who understands what we go through and can relate. She's someone who represents us, being part of our multilingual community. She supports innovation, supports teachers in following IEPs. She understands the importance of a dual enrollment program for our high schoolers, and she is strong about other programs. We are very happy to have someone like her running for the committee.
Okay, no sé si alguien tiene alguna pregunta.
And now if someone has any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Zona, may I go to you first?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say gracias to Kailani and Doris and Kelly and everyone helping with the Elpac committee. You guys are doing an awesome job, and good luck to the future, your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Zona. Steve?
Yeah, fun question first. Did all of those words in that diagram mean thank you in, it looked like about 5,000 different languages?
Very many languages, a lot of different languages. Yes, all of them say thank you.
That was fun. I do have a couple of questions. Is a turnout, shall we call it, of 20 participants high or low? And does it change from meeting to meeting?
Doris, ella está preguntando si los participantes que participan en cada reunión cambian de reunión para reunión o si siempre tiene 20 familias participando.
Ok, el número, la cantidad varía bastante. A veces tenemos más personas, a veces llegamos a 20, entonces no hay como una definición del número. Cuando hacíamos las reuniones en persona, sí eran más familias las que se unían.
The numbers vary a lot. Sometimes we have 20 families participating, sometimes less. When we used to have meetings in person, yes, we always had many families participating, but when we started doing online, the number dropped.
And do you
Can
have
I
an
respond to-
email list that's more extensive than those participating families so that you can be reaching out to them regularly?
Sorry, Kelly, did you say something?
Well, before that, I was just going to ask if I could respond to the chair to that question as well about the numbers.
Certainly. Sure.
So when I was hired, I was told that the Elpac, that the numbers were literally in the 1s, 2s, and 3s. So we're really proud that we have anywhere from 10 to 20. During COVID, when we announced that Dr. Hallett would be there and Roberto Santa Maria, we had upwards of 50 people attend. And the reason why the Department of Education invited us to their convening was to model as a model Elpac, because our numbers are a lot more successful than other places in the state. So that's thanks to Dori and her outreach to the people.
Thank you.
Kailani, if you want to tell Dori that, that would be great.
Dori, Kelly estaba explicando para as personas que graças a tu belo trabalho, os participantes começaram a se envolver mais com Elpac, que antes de sua presidência, as pessoas não estavam participando muito, mas quando COVID quando COVID começou, e convidaram a Dr. Hallett e Roberto Santa Maria para as reuniões. Os participantes subiram até quase que 50 participantes na reunião, e que é graças a suas informações que eles vieram e começaram a participar.
And now maybe you can ask her Steve's question about email list and the different ways that we make contact.
Thank you.
Um,
Do you want me to ask again?
yes, please.
Yeah. Do you have an email list, an extensive email list, so that you can be contacting people and letting them know the important information? Obviously, the information that you are gathering is important. So is your email list extensive?
We actually, I can answer that. We send home flyers in children's backpacks back when we could do paper. And the Elpac sends home the flyers. The Elpac sends home flyers and we send them through Aspen. So we send them to all families of students who are English learners.
Through Aspen.
Yep. And we also
Cool.
use Facebook and we also use WhatsApp. So we have multiple means of communication.
That
Because
sounds
we find that's
great.
what works. Most of our families don't really read Aspen, but we do it anyway. We have found that paper, Facebook, and WhatsApp and Remind app work best.
Let's get back to paper, huh?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Tim,
I think it's wonderful seeing that the Elpac pulling together and drawing in those numbers is amazing in the face of COVID. Reminds me of trying to bring people into town meeting. We had proposals to give them $5 if they'd show up. The Elpac are showing up and doing some really very interesting and innovative things. So thank you very much.
thank you, Tim. Jen,
Hi, thank you for your presentation. That was wonderful. I'm wondering if there's a way to still include families whose students might not be identified as EL students, but parents, are non-English speakers. Is there a way that we're able to identify these families and invite them? I mean, I feel like they could go under the radar since their kids aren't identified as students.
We do a really good job of identifying our English learners. We have a pretty clean process that's been tightened up a lot over the years. There are students who aren't English learners because they've exited, or they're not English learners because they never qualified in, but they are multilingual. We invite multilingual families, but the state guidelines are specifically set that it's for students in the English language programming, because their charge is to work with the school districts to advocate for improvements in school systems. So the ultimate goal of the state in making this into law, Baker did it in 2016, was to give a voice to Elpac families so that they can start asking for example, bilingual counselors or dual language programs, or I'll send you the link to the Department of Ed website. They're supposed to have access to district improvement plans, and they should be part of school improvement plans and district improvement planning. So it's pretty clear the state wants English learner families. We invite other multilingual people anyway, though.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I do know families, their students, their kids speak English fluently and mom and dad don't, and they're, feeling a little disconnected, and you offer so much to family members that I'm glad to know that they are included, even though their students aren't traditional EL students. So thank you.
Many have exited, many of the kids. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. It's impressive what you're doing, and it's incredibly impressive to have had 50 plus people in attendance to your meetings. I think that's great, showing that you are connected to your families. And I think, as Kelly alluded to, that we have begun, or we are now doing a very thorough process of connecting with our families and our parents. So I'm very confident that, we are reaching those that we need to reach, and that you're a very inclusive group. A few weeks ago at our meeting, we had a presentation that Kelly did, and it's a number that still sticks with me, even though we have had statistics of the demographics of our schools and how much they've changed over the last, 10, 12 years. But this number has still stuck in my head, that 40% of our student body, our current student body, 40%, English is not their first language. And that's almost half our district. And so I appreciate your comments about having bilingual staff and having staff that look like the children who are in the school, in our teachers and across the board. So, and I really appreciated when we were doing the superintendent interviews with you coming in and coming in as a group and asking your questions and really participating in that process. So thank you very much for that as well. And we're thankful that you're here. We're thankful that Governor Baker put this in process. It's too bad that it took that in order to bring the group together, but I'm glad you're here. And I'd like us to have you on the agenda more than once a year. If for your voices to be heard at the school committee level, you should be coming to us more often. And we heard you loud and clear tonight, but I do think that we should be seeing you more often. So thank you all for your time tonight. Okay, moving on to the next presentation, which is the Special Needs Advisory Council. We have Laura Steele, Kristen DeSalt, Allison Johnson, and Jean Witt. And I think earlier in the evening, when we were seeing who was here, I don't think everyone was present. And I'm looking to see Laura Steele is here. Hi, Laura.
Yeah, I think I'm flying solo tonight.
Okay. All right, well, welcome.
Hi. Yeah, so I don't have a PowerPoint or anything quite like that, but I did just want to share. I was looking back to last year's time we presented, and I realized that in April 2020 we were so excited to share that we had just met with our at our February meeting with all the leaders of the island's summer camps and after-school programs, and how they could better integrate our special needs kids into their camp programs. We were so excited for summer. That seemed like a lifetime ago. I had to go back, and was that 2 years ago? It was really just last year. We had just entered our 2-week quarantine period. And we were not yet aware how virtual meetings would become the norm, and not the exception. Nor were we quite aware of how the upcoming summer would play out. We would soon learn that our hopes for having our kids integrated in summer camps would not be realized, as there were no summer camps. So navigating summer without camps and school without in-class participation is hard enough for all parents of all students. But the challenges for parents with special needs children can be a particular struggle. Many of our kids don't understand why they can't be in school in person, or they become easily frustrated with the inability to access the curriculum and other critical services in any meaningful way. Well, in an unfamiliar remote format, you know, distractions in their own home and whatever. Some of us have sadly witnessed our kids backsliding academically, losing language and social skills that had just begun to emerge, all with no, known end in sight. We certainly appreciate this and support the school's decision for students in our cohorts to be able to do 4 days a week and be part of cohort A. I know that I'm not alone in feeling that this is a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty and worry. And once that change was made, has made a big difference for, for a lot of us. I will say over the past year that as a committee, we've had to be a little bit more reactive than proactive. And that has as much to do with our own crazy lives and trying to juggle the kids and their jobs and childcare and all that. So we've been a little bit more reactive than proactive, which is what we prefer. But there have been some great gains. Holding our meetings via Zoom, although we miss our snacks at snack when we gather. We usually have pretty good snacks. But holding our meetings via Zoom has allowed for more parent participation. So I think similar to the Yale group, we've seen a lot more people in attendance, and it's increased, it's helped more families engage with us, and we all enjoy the benefit of more school personnel attending. So that's been really nice to see. We used to occasionally get 1 or 2 people show up besides the director, and we regularly have often more school personnel than parents. So that's kind of a nice thing. On our October meeting, which was attended by all the speech therapists from all 4 schools, and they provided a great exchange on the successes of the virtual speech therapy and solutions for when those successes weren't really successful. So when the challenges surface. Kathy Hackett from the Martha's Vineyard Community Service have been able to attend meetings more regularly without worrying about travel logistics. And it's been nice to see so many of the NPS special ed team attend our meetings regularly. Having them available and willing to answer questions and just hear what our parents have to say, I think has been really rewarding for them and for us. We appreciate Mike Horton making an effort to attend all of our meetings, and would encourage other school principals and vice principals to attend whenever you can. Not saying you have to be there every time, but it's always nice to have that discussion, especially as we're transitioning from remote to in person. We've gained a better understanding of some of the nuances that go into certain school decisions, which I think has been helpful for everybody. Our last meeting was not actually a meeting, but a wonderful presentation called Awesome Connections, AUSOME, Understanding Relationships on the Autism Spectrum. And it was presented by Patty Menzel. Patty shared her experience as a person with autism and how oogie it can feel for somebody to make a social goal for you that is not necessarily in line with your own, with her own feelings of she didn't feel she needed a social goal. She's perfectly happy with her amount of social, interaction. So it was really interesting to hear from her and how to meet her on her level. And it was really eye-opening for me as a parent of a child with autism. I saw a lot of things that, this makes sense. I'm pushing him to do these things, but that's not something maybe that he's comfortable with. And there are other ways to make those connections. So everybody really, really loved this presentation, whether they had kids on the spectrum or not. And it was informative and eye-opening for all of us. And we all agreed that we wish it had been recorded. And we would love for Patty to present the entire district. I think peers in the school, the kids in the school would really learn from this and be able to understand our kids, or all of our kids who might have social differences. But teachers and students alike would really benefit from that. So I would encourage, if you have some professional development or even just want to have a talk for the class, for the schools, I think this would be really beneficial. They can better understand where kind of our kids are coming from. And of course, we welcomed our new Special Services Director, Dave Gately, who has been very informative at each meeting and instrumental in getting our SNAC webpage updated and accessible on our school's website with relevant information in both English and Spanish. One initiative we did achieve this year, in being proactive, was creating a welcome letter for from SNAC to new special needs parents. I think you received a copy of that in the packet. This is a letter that we hope will be sent to all parents of when they get their IEPs or whenever that process is, whether it's the beginning of the year to all parents or just to the parents who, when they get their first information about their child qualifying for an IEP, we would really like this to be shared across all school levels. We know from our own experiences that having access to parents who have been through some of these same issues is extremely helpful. So we just want to keep spreading the word that this village is here for those who need advice or just want company of people who truly understand. So we appreciate your time and continued support of our mission. If anybody has any questions.
So much. Thank you so much, Laura. Yes, I will put it up for questions and comments. Steve.
Oh, you're going to start with me this time, huh? I attended a number of your meetings when we were real as opposed to virtual. Is there on your website a link to visit those meetings, or could I press you to start sending me links?
Yes, we haven't loaded it onto the website because I know there's the issue of Zoomer people, you know, I don't think you're supposed to do that, right? Publish the actual link, but Deb does send an email out every before every meeting, and to all the parents, and I don't know who else is on your list, Deb, but perhaps we could add the school committee members and all the principals, and I would love to have that invitation be included. Is that something that we could do, Deb?
Yeah, I would hope so. I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, just through the chair. I do send that out to all of the building administration as well as all of the teachers and parents, and I'll be happy to add school committee members on that as well.
Great, thanks. And my final question is, how do you do those backgrounds? We don't have to talk about it tonight, but I can't get the Zoom backgrounds to work.
You know, I did this a long time ago, and I don't know how to make it go away or change it either. So I'm not sure I can answer that.
That's great. Thank you. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Tim, would you like to go next?
I certainly would appreciate getting on a list so I know when the meetings, because that's the type of thing that can slide by unless you have a reminder. But I think it's an important part of the school, and it's very important for our students that they get an opportunity to succeed. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Jen.
I want to thank you, Laura. You're amazing. I love how you come and you're always here. You're always present and dedicated, and I really appreciate that. I agree with everyone else and would love to have a link and be able to join meetings. And know that I feel like I can speak on behalf of the school committee members. We're here to help support you in any way. So thank you for what you do.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, we'd love to have more of you. We'd love to have more people. That's great.
Zona.
Laura, I really appreciate you as well. You do an awesome job in holding SNAC up and keeping it in the front of our minds. So thank you for all that you do. I would say send me a link too, but my term is short, so I'm going to save that space and remind the school committee that if all three of you get on, you cannot talk to each other. I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the role of SNAC is a very important one, and it is important that you share the information. I actually had wanted to join in with the presentation at your last meeting, and unfortunately I wasn't able to join you, but Deb had sent me the information, and I think it's interesting to sort of hear how the pandemic has sort of either eased or made it harder for you to maintain your meetings. I think your childcare is always difficult, right? To leave the house, but also that camaraderie and also being together and seeing people face to face who know what life is like, who are sharing the same issues that you're all sharing. I think it's very important to be together. So I hope for everyone's benefit that the pandemic goes by soon so you can be back in person. But I'm really pleased to know that you've been able to continue on in this. And Kathy Hackett is a love. I've worked with Kathy for many years, and for her, it certainly makes it easier to jump on the computer rather than having to come from off island. But thank you, Laura. You are a champion for your children and for all children. And we're very lucky to have you in this position. So thank you.
I certainly don't do it alone. I have a great team, and you know, they're all Suzanne Franzudo and Laura Kabati and the entire board. You know, we have liaisons for each school. It's really helpful to have them. And we did decide that if we do get to do meetings in person again, we will still like to bring a computer and have a Zoom option. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to accommodate those of us who would like to get out of our houses and get together, and also those who maybe don't feel they can. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you again for joining us this evening, Laura.
My pleasure. Thanks for your support.
Of course. Okay, looking at the next item, which is the school committee self-evaluation. Finally, we have everybody in attendance where we can go through this. This is an annual self-evaluation that the school committee members fill out. If you are interested in looking, there is quite a lengthy evaluation tool and the purpose of the evaluation, which I won't read everything out because there are many points, but you can find it on the Massachusetts Association for School Committees. You can find this self-evaluation form, which outlines the benefits of having an annual evaluation. And you know, why would we do a self-evaluation? It's for the committee to really take the time to assess, are we doing things right? And are the right things being done the right way? And so I'm going to read through. We had various areas that we were looking at. One is governance. Another area was operations. Another was members relations, committee superintendent relation, strategic planning, fiscal management, community relations, and conduct of meetings. And there were 4 different areas that we could describe our understanding. Was 1, strongly agree, 2, agree, 3, disagree, and 4, I don't know. So if the committee will permit me, I will go through the different areas and list the sections in each area. I will read out the evaluation numbers, and then I will allow committee members then to have a general discussion if we think that's the best way to do this. Not seeing any.
I'm not sure I understood. You're going to read the whole document?
Well, that's what I'm planning to do, because I don't know. Was this part of the packet, Logan? It was. So I'm asking the committee, do you want me to read through it? Do you want me to go through the evaluation numbers? Do you want me just to highlight where we had, because some of them we have all agree or all strongly agree. Do you want me just to highlight the areas where we didn't agree? I'd like some direction.
Highlighting is, I think highlighting is fine. If we're all on the same page on an area, I don't think that we need to have a discussion about it.
And I think, Logan, didn't you send us an updated version of this? It wasn't part, you followed up on the original packet, right?
It was just a date change in the footer, that's all.
Oh,
Everything
okay.
Right,
same.
right. We're still going off the original. Well, if you're okay with that, then I will just highlight where we had, where we weren't all in agreement. Under governance, the committee refrains from decision-making at the administrative level and reinforces the expected chain of command. We had 2 people that agreed. We had 1 that strongly agreed. We had 1 person that agreed and disagreed. And then we had 1 person that disagreed. Also under governance, we had the committee members take part in educational workshops and conferences to help them make informed decisions. We had 1 person strongly agree. We had 2 people agree. We had 1 person agree and disagree. And then we had 1 person that disagreed.
So can I just start through the chair by saying we've had this conversation in the past that there needs to be something between agree and disagree. There needs to be a happy medium between the two. Somewhat agree, somewhat disagree, but there needs to be something other than agree, disagree, something in between that. We've had this conversation in the past.
Perhaps partially agree or somewhat agree. I know I've raised that issue for our next, the next version. I know it couldn't be done this time.
I think partially is a good term.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's important, and that's going to get rid of the agree, disagree, which is really counterproductive.
Under operations, we had everybody either agree strongly or agree, and then 1 member did not fill that out. There was not a measurement on that. And so unless that particular person wants to share that reason, I will move on, because these are in theory private evaluations, not necessarily identified as to who did the evaluation. So I can move on that one. Member relationships, or member relations. We, under members treat each other with courtesy and respect. We had 1 strongly agree, 3 agree, and 1 disagree. We had members share pertinent information through the school committee chair to prevent surprises and promote informed decision. We had 1 strongly agree, 3 agree, and 1 disagree. And then members do their homework and come prepared to make decisions. We had 1 strongly agree, 2 agree, and 2, which could have been partially, I guess, 2 disagreed and agreed at the same time. And then finally, under that same category, members understand the role of the individual as part of the whole group. 1 was strongly agree, 3 was agree, and 1 was partially. I'm just going to use that term if you're all like, okay, because it's disagree, agree.
Yeah, look, I'll admit I'm one of the 2, wait a minute, let me get the whole document up here again. Homework. And part of the reason that I partially agreed was I know there have been a few occasions, myself personally, where there's been so much stuff that I'll admit I did not read it word for word. I try not to let that happen, but it does happen occasionally, so I couldn't completely agree.
Okay. Is there something that we can discuss as far as timing on? I know it's difficult when presentations are coming up because everybody has a lot of things going on during their workday. And I do know that there are deadlines that come in for the packet for the school committee. I don't know if
well, I know, to answer your question, Pauline, I and it may sound silly since I'm retired and all the days are the same, but when we were regularly meeting on Tuesdays and things came on Fridays, I somehow knew I had the whole weekend to get through everything. But sometimes I think with the Thursday meetings, it's just different somehow. So it does, I'm sure it does for the rest of you, make it more difficult to get through every word of, especially when we're presentation heavy.
Yes. I don't know how you all feel, but I feel since we've been remote, and maybe it's not so, I'll have to go back on past agendas, but I feel that we're heavier in presentations than we ever were before. And I just feel like our meetings are longer, and I don't know if that is because we've added in more presentations because we're remote, or it's just slower, it takes more time.
I think it's slower, Madam Chair, because everybody's sitting in the comfort of their own home, office or whatever, and they tend to go on. We have got to put time limitations. I know it sounds horrible, but on presentations, they go endlessly. Everybody, and when you're in person, you're a little nervous, so you get through it a little bit faster. I gotta believe that that's happening. So that now that we're remote, everybody's a little bit lax, a little bit more comfortable because they're in their own space, and they tend to go on a little long. We are 2 hours in right now, and that's a long time for a meeting. I've had agendas. I was just in a meeting last night, a Zoom with the Cape Collaborative, and we had a 16-page, the agenda wasn't 16 pages, but it was 16 pages of all the areas we needed to cover. You know, we got through that in an hour and a half because somebody was moving it along, you know, very nicely. And we have presentations all the time too. It's just that we have to figure out how to move it along and cut out some of the commentary, I guess. You know, we got to figure that out. I don't want to slight anybody or not listen to what they want to share with us, but, you know, tell them ahead of time. Okay, your presentation it can't be longer than 4 minutes, you know, so really hit the highlights because we have the paper documentation that we can go through and we can even ask our questions from the information we get ahead of time. But that's just my observation.
May I agree and disagree?
Only partially.
I don't expect anything.
Give me a 2/3 on that. Yes, the presentations have been long, but I just think it's so good for us to know this. And if we're just reading the documents they present, it's not the same. I agree that the meetings, it does feel like the meetings have been longer this year. I'll just throw this out here. Maybe we need to meet more often and shorten the meetings. I think I've read a number of school committees who have commented upon the length of their meetings. And God help us, some of them went, they said, till midnight, you know, starting at around 6 o'clock. We haven't done that yet. But I think the presentations are important. 4 minutes, Zona, is what scared me. Okay.
4 minutes, a minute is a long time. 4 minutes is a long time. You have to pick and choose the highlights, but going through your slide and reading it word for word, not necessary.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So moving along in the process of the comments that you're making now, under committee and superintendent relation, both committee and superintendent operate on a no surprise model. One person strongly agreed, 3 agreed, and 1 was the partially agree.
Listen, might this be a good time for me to say, I never strongly agreed with anything because I don't know the difference between agree and strongly agree. I mean, agreement is 100%. You can't go further than that. So I didn't put a 1 anywhere for that reason.
Yep. Well, again, when we look at this for future time, I think that we can maybe move that out, and then we'll put in the partially, and then we'll have a document that we feel is more representative of how we're answering. If I agree, I agree. I don't strongly agree. I agree that if you agree, you agree, right? So I'm on board with that. Under just strategic planning, we had agree or strongly agreed. Under fiscal management, the committee as a group presents and advocates the budget to the town of Nantucket officials and the community. We had 1 strongly agree, 3 agree, and 1 disagree. Finally, on community relations, the committee communicates regularly in a systematic way with its constituents. We had 4 agree and 1 disagree.
Listen, I'm going to take credit for the disagree because I can't recall, and please correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I can't recall our direct communication to our constituents. And I'm thinking parents or students, I mean, staff, students are our constituents too, I suppose. I cannot recall many occasions that we have directly communicated, let alone regularly or systematically. I don't know if that would be solved by having a newsletter or, I don't know, a monthly statement. I don't know how to fix it. I just don't think we're doing it.
Well, I think when I was answering that, I was thinking of the transparency in what we're discussing, and which is the agenda, and then also the videoed televised meetings. So all of the work that we do is always met in public. So I felt like I could answer it because we have our goals, we have our district goals posted, we have our agenda, we have presentations, and it's all recorded. So if somebody wanted to find out what the work of the school committee was, I feel that it's pretty easy to obtain that information. So that's where I was going with that. And that the minutes are always posted in a timely manner on our site. So I think our schools, you know, the work of the schools obviously is separate from our work, but of course, I think our communication is very clear in all of our schools and all of the teachers' websites. So that's where I was coming from, Steve, when I answered that. I don't know if that helps you think differently or not.
No, that just seems auxiliary to me. I mean, that's like saying we have 2 meetings a month. Why would we have this listed as a separate topic if that was the kind of thing we were talking about, was meetings and minutes and things that we're expected to do in any event?
Mm-hmm. Any other comments? Okay. The last one is the conduct of meetings. One was full and sufficient debate is allowed. We had 1 strongly agree, 3 agree, and 1 disagree. Another area was discussion is focused on issues, not personalities. We had 2 strongly agree, 1 agree, 1 partially agree, and 1 no comment. And then finally, in that last category, meetings are frequent enough to prevent overcrowded agendas. We were just talking about. 1 was strongly agree, 2 were agree, and 3 would disagree. 2 would disagree. Sorry.
Listen, I'm going to take credit for the not applicable there, so y'all know where I am on anything. I didn't think I should be commenting on my couch.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's certainly in the do you mean just in general?
No, I mean, the question doesn't seem to apply to Zoom meetings like it would to face-to-face
Right.
meetings.
I understand.
That's all.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody have any comments, questions on the evaluation? Okay, seeing none. I will move on to the next item. And just so you all know, I do write down the times every time we go to a new presentation. It hasn't helped us, but I do write it down for my own knowledge. As Zona has shared already in this meeting, I will read Zona's letter of resignation. It's dear Mrs. Proch, it is with regret that I tender my resignation as a member of the Nantucket School Committee, effective June 30th, 2021, or election day. I'm grateful for relationships developed and having had the opportunity to serve the Nantucket community in this capacity for the past 5 years, and I offer my sincerest wishes for its continued success. The committee has all received a copy of Mrs. Butler's letter. We have on our last item for discussion is the process for the school committee vacancy seat. And it has certainly set us all, I think, in some sort of, not tailspin, but confusion as far as the process, because what we are used to is having elections come at the end of our term. We run an election and the seats are filled. Every year, 1 year we have 2 seats available, second year we have 2 seats available, and the third cyclical year we have 1 seat available because we are a committee of 5. We have in the past, due to unforeseen circumstances, the death of 2 of our school committee members, Jenny Garneau and Robin Harvey. And during that time, both Robin and Jenny passed away during their elected term. And as that was an immediate resignation of their term, then the appointment, if somebody leaves during their elected term, the process for the town of Nantucket and confirmed by the Massachusetts Association for School Committees is a process is that during that period of time that the person vacates their seat prior to the election, it is an appointment by the school committee, which is then reinforced and voted by the select board. With both of the prior situations, as I've said, the school committee put in notification of the opening on the school committee board. People wrote in applications and then an interview process happened. And then, of course, back then we were in person. And so they were in-person interviews, and then the committee took votes on the appointment of the person for that seat. That person would remain in the appointed seat up until the election, the following election. So for instance, when Jenny passed away, I was appointed into her position. She passed away in November, and I sat in the appointed seat from that time through until April, which was the next election. Jenny had 1 more year left on her actual term. So I could have walked away, or I did what I did, which was I ran an election to finish up Jenny's term for 1 more year. And then I ran an election for 3 years. And the reason I believe that the process is in place for us is we are an elected board. And therefore, the person that is filling the space or the position is only appointed up until the next election, and then they run an election too. And that's in order to keep the rota or the roster going. So we always maintain 2 people 1 year, 2 people another year, and then the 3rd year is the single person. When I ran for Jenny's position, of course, it was 3 open seats. That's unavoidable. There are going to be times when there are 3 seats open and an election it's few and far between, but it does happen. With the process that we are faced with Zona, is that Zona has resigned, but she has given us the date of either election day or June 30th. And I believe that the reason we had either of the dates was at the time of Zona's letter, which was January 27th, we didn't have the date for the election date. So therefore Zona gave us either, and I'm presuming Zona, and I don't want to speak for you, but does your letter allude to whatever count comes first? So in this case, we know now it's June 15th. Would it be June 15th or June 30th? I can't hear you, sorry.
Is it town meeting June 5th? Or election day? Or
Election day is the 15th of June.
Oh, okay. So,
Madam Chair, could I ask a couple of quick questions? I don't recall, did we all receive a copy of Zona's resignation letter? Because I
You
don't
did.
recall actually seeing it.
You did back in January, but I can resend the email to you, Steve.
Okay, my concern is when you read it, I didn't hear you say whichever first occurs or whichever is sooner or something like that. And therefore it's ambiguous as to which of those two dates apply, the 15th, which is election day, or the 30th, which is the end of the month.
So that was just what I was just asking Zona for confirmation, because it says effective June 30th or election day. And now we know what election date is. I'm asking for which date it is.
let me clarify what my intentions were. Last year, I started to have some medical issues, so I had to rethink my life and cut back on some things. For 32 years, I have been on the hamster wheel, and it's time for me to slow down. So it was either in November or December. I had surgery in November, and I think I was thinking about slowing down. So I called the town clerk and asked, how much notice did I need to give in order to resign my position? And I was told, and I believe because the people in office aren't that experienced, they probably didn't know any different. And they said, I didn't have to give any kind of notice, just, resign or make it known that I wanted to resign. So my intent was to resign early enough so that the seat would be available on the ballot. That's exactly what my intention was. So it wasn't until, I don't know, that the paper and stuff got wind of it, that they investigated with the town and found out it was too late because the town had set the annual meeting date and the election date had been pushed out, whatever, but it wasn't time enough for my seat to be on the ballot. Again, I blame the town office for not being, on top of things to inform me correctly. My intentions were not to just cut and dry. I enjoyed my stay with the school committee. I have to make choices that are not necessarily what I would rather do, but what are better for me in the long run. So that's why I gave notice, and I says, I'm not going to walk away right away. I want to stay and finish the year out, the school year. My intention is all about the school year because that's how we work mostly. So having said that, it's election day, but you all can't, I think the quandary is you cannot appoint something because I may change my mind on June 14th. Let me assure you that ain't gonna happen. Okay, I've given my notice. I've made my decision. It is what's best for me personally, and I want to do things the right way. So I'm giving you notice. You have my word that I'm not going to rescind it, but I'd like to finish based on the dates that I gave you.
So
that makes me feel like I'm
thank
keeping
you.
my word.
So is it election day?
Election day is fine.
Okay, election day. Thank you. Thank you, Zona. And I appreciate your explaining your thought process. I will say, needless where the information came from, it isn't because you are still in your term, it would not have gone on the ballot. That's not how elected positions that are still in a current term work for the school committee. So
maybe she should have explained it that way. That I wasn't, clear about that at all. When I came into it, I came into it the
Zona,
same way.
if she knew, just so that we're not casting aspersions anywhere. I'm not sure any of us had previously read Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 11, except maybe Logan,
Yeah.
which
Right.
sets out a process for appointing to a vacancy.
Right. So I hope it's okay that I've tried to sort of outline I did send you all, I think I'd sent earlier Jim Hardy, who is our mask rep, because I had gone to him. I also had called the town. I also received an email earlier on through Dr. Hallett, but it was clear that they were giving an example of when we had the past death on the school committee and how that position was filled. And this is not the same situation. We have a date.
It's simply because I didn't resign and say effective immediately. Had I said that, it would be just like I died. No pun intended.
No, I know, but it would be a different process.
Right.
So I did speak with our town council for school committees, and I did forward you all his email. And his email says that now that we have the date of June 15th, as of June 16th, we can ask Logan to put an advertisement out for people to apply. And this is where I want just to get some conversation on how we want to process. It is a school committee. It is a joint school committee and joint select board vote. So my conversation with him, I was trying to play out different scenarios. And we need to decide, let's say we put an advertisement out for June 16th and we want to do the interviews. We can do one of two things. It is the school committee that is doing the interviewing. And when we make a recommendation, we vote. It needs to be a roll call vote, but we have to have the select board in that meeting to make the roll call vote that same meeting. And so it makes sense. They can join. We can have a school committee meeting like this, and the select board can join in by watching YouTube or be watching as a non-participant in the meeting. And we don't have to call it a joint school committee and select board meeting. So that way they can meet the candidates. If there are multiple candidates, they can hear the questions to help them make their decision. The second option that we have is that we can hold, and we would need to post, a joint committee meeting of the select board and the school committee. And we make that perhaps that's the only business, order of business for that meeting. And then the other choice that we have is everybody is going to have a written application, right? A letter of interest. So if we get that in time, we can read the applications, have our questions ready. And if you all felt comfortable, we could do this in one meeting. So we could interview the applicants, having read their application. We have a joint meeting with the select board. The candidates go off the screen, come out of the meeting, and then we do a roll call vote with everybody there. And then that way it would speed up the process, because then that person could go in, get sworn in, and attend the next meeting. If we want to wait a week or two, or week, let's say, after we've interviewed the candidates, then we're probably not looking at having the person on board on the committee for another 2 weeks. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on the process that you think.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have to say, I think we have another option.
Okay.
but I'd like to clarify something first. It's gotten back to me that some people have been led to believe that I have been pushing to put this off until after the election. And the fact of the matter is, and you can confirm this, I've been pushing for over a month now to get us going on this. In fact, I previously sent a proposed motion with times, dates, et cetera, so that we could get going on this before Election Day. So I wanted that clarification out there first. And then I think the option that apparently it's your interpretation, but it's not mine, is that we can't start the applicant and interview process before Election Day. That's not in the statute. General Laws 41, Section 11 doesn't allow us to notify the select board until there's a vacancy. And that vacancy becomes available literally at 8 o'clock, June 15th, right? Because that's when Zona has now clarified that she's going to, her resignation will be effective. So there's no question that we cannot send our 30-day notice to the select board until that vacancy exists. But nowhere in the statute, nor in the town charter, nor in the town bylaws, if there's a difference between the two, does it say we can't begin the process. Certainly now that we're certain that Zona is not going to change her mind of inviting applicants, interviewing applicants, can't vote on them yet until after the election and presumably during that 30-day period. And I don't believe there's any confusion about that. Erica Mooney's email suggested that we could get started. In fact, I've got it here and I can read it aloud if you want, but she specifically says she sees no problem with starting the process ahead of time. And I have a quick question. The lawyer, Nicholas Dominello, is he our lawyer or the town's lawyer?
He's our lawyer.
Okay, then I've got a problem with the fact that he's even been consulted about this. If I recall the bylaw, our policy manual correctly, it's a school committee decision to engage counsel. And I don't believe we've ever been asked to engage counsel. So I'm troubled by the fact that he's been brought into it. Ironically, I don't disagree with most of what he says. His understanding of Chapter 41 matches up with the wording of Chapter 41, Section 11. But he doesn't say that we cannot begin the process, and I'll explain why I think it's important in a minute. He does not say that we cannot begin the process legally of seeking and interviewing applicants. What he says is it's his opinion that it would be best practice not to do so because Zona might change her mind. Well, we know Zona is not going to change her mind, and best practice isn't the same as saying there's a statute. In fact, he acknowledges, and I believe Jim Hardy also acknowledged, there's nothing in the charter or the bylaws that prevents us from beginning the process. And I think it's important that we do so because we don't want to leave a seat vacant. That term is already going to be a couple of months shorter than it would have been if the election had been in April, like we always have our elections in April. And We don't know how long the process is going to be of reviewing applicants, making a selection, recommending that to the Board of Selectmen. It is clear in the statute and the wording of the statute that the select people and the remaining school committee members by roll call vote for a candidate. So it's going to be, multiple votes. Both committees get to vote on that. I'm concerned that that process is going to shorten that term even more. The summer is going to be one of our most important times in terms of getting the schools ready to go again in September. God knows I'm hopeful that we're going to be full in person, running the schools like we normally would, semicolon, but, comma, given the latest that we're hearing about these variants of the virus, etc., we're still going to have to be extremely careful about our safety. So I believe that we ought to begin the process. There's no legal reason that we can't agree as a committee to, I don't know exactly what we need to include in the notice, but put on our website and in the Inky Mirror a request for applicants next Thursday. I'd hate to even wait till May to make this decision. If we put the advertisement, if we want to call it that, the request for applicants in a week from now, and then gave 2 or 3 weeks for the applicants to apply, then we could begin the interview process, at the latest by mid-May, so that when election night arrives, we can immediately, presumably the next morning, notify the select board that there's a vacancy. Then we've met our 30-day notice and work out with them how quickly they want to get together with us to decide who it is. My understanding is that the past practice here has been that the school committee recommends one person to the select board and then meets with the select board to vote on whether that's acceptable. So if we're not going to break with prior practice, and I think I recognize that having people pass away is a little bit different, but the process has been for the school committee to screen and then make a recommendation to the select board. And we would be prepared to do that, keeping in mind the election is June 15. So already that person's term is shortened to 10 months. If we have to wait another month or two and that term gets shortened to 8 months, the committee is only going to be 4 people for a couple of more months. And we don't have to do that. There's no legal reason. And I guess I'll stop now for the moment. Thank you.
Other comments? Jen, Steve, Zona? Zona, I think you're muted still.
So my comment is I agree with Steve, but I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think it should break with prior practice. I do think you should go ahead and advertise, to get the, to get the ball rolling. Why wait? And then so you're ready to react on the 16th of June. I think prior practice was that the school committee, I was just reading over all the material you sent, Pauline, that, Michael sent a letter, or the superintendent sent a letter to the select board. Now, why it came from him and not the school committee, I don't know, but he is the one that recommended the person, and I'm assuming the select board voted on it and ratified the decision that the school committee had made. It just seems more apropos, and that it would move a lot faster and succinctly if it was done the way it's been done in the past. That is my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Zona. Tim?
I forget, well, the person you didn't mention was Tony Dias. Tony died while I was on school committee also. And I actually can't remember what we did for him. But I don't think, Zona is on school committee till she resigns. And when she resigns, then we can start the search, I think.
Okay.
You might change your mind.
I'm sorry, I zoned out just for 13 seconds there. Did you say that you think we need to wait till June 15 to get started?
I just think that until she resigns officially, she hasn't resigned.
I guess I'm confused by what you mean by that, Tim. I've resigned. I just thought I was, again, my goal was to not leave you high and dry, but to finish it out the year. So if that's being interpreted as to she may change her mind, and if I give you my word that I'm not going to change my mind, that should be sufficient. I can't come back on that. I can't come back and say, well, I changed my mind, because I've told you in public meeting, I'm not going to change my mind. My date is June 15th. Love y'all.
So thank you. I think that the process, speaking with Nick and then also Jim Hardy, who's our mask rep, and he is who I had sent the initial question to when the first motion was being added into the agenda, and he was emphatic that it could not be, an action could not happen on something, on a position that was not vacated. And I think, and this isn't, let's take personalities out of it. It's an open position. The reason being that you wouldn't want to bring in interviews or get people to apply and send in a letter that becomes public, a document, because you could have somebody that's then sitting there, and again, we're taking the personalities out of it, but you could have somebody that's sitting there who is resigned from 3 months from now, and they're looking at the applications and they say, wait a minute, these people can't do this, and I can do a better job than them, so I'm going to take it back. I'm not going to resign. You've now spent possibly the time of, I don't know, 10, 15 people who have made a public document of coming in and applying for a position that now doesn't exist. And so both of them.
Maybe the person resigning shouldn't be a part of that process.
Well, either way or not, it's if we are going to have interviews or conversations and applications coming in, you're still a sitting board member. You're still a member of 5. So you would be part of that, and you can be part, because I've asked as many questions as I could scenario wise, so that I was prepared to have the answers for what you might all ask. The position of doing roll call, because we are remote meeting, is that we need to do the roll call vote. Same as every vote that has to happen in our meeting needs to be a roll call vote. The fact that the select board have not been part of that process as voting, you could argue that we haven't followed the proper procedure in the past. But what has been outlined to me, and I shared with you the emails from both the mask representative and the attorney, is what I sent you, which is with what I'm saying. And it's following the law and the policies of the Mass General Law best practices. And we differentiate between town best practices. An appointed position with town is different from the appointed position that we're looking at here, which is an elected role. So that's the other difference. It's an elected position. It's not an appointed position on a committee. It's an elected normally an elected position, but for a period of time, it's being appointed by the school governing body.
Well,
It
Madam
seems to
Chair, I have to interject. I don't believe Jim Hardy said we can't. He doesn't think we should. And for sure, the lawyer said it's his opinion that it's best practice. He didn't say we can't. There's nothing in the statute about the seeking of applications and the interview process. All that's in the statute is that when you have a vacancy, you give 30 days notice. And then if we don't make a recommendation, the selectmen will do it, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing in there that says we can't get started. And with all due respect to the lawyer and the mask person, we're allowed to disagree with them. If we think we want to smooth this process out, especially given the fact that it's a COVID year and we need to get somebody in that seat as soon as we can. I'm taking Zona at her word that June 15th is it. Jen's raising her hand.
Yeah. I happen to agree with Steve and Zona, and I feel like it's within the best interest of our district to have that seat filled as soon as possible. So if you can help fill that seat by starting the process now, I don't see why you would wait. It makes no sense to me that you would have an empty seat when you could purposefully be working on the process to fill it and appoint someone as soon as Zona's finished.
I'm going to, accordingly, since there are 3 of us that are of simpler minds, I'm hereby making a motion that we begin the search for a replacement within the next week by placing a request for applicants in the Inky and posting it on the school website, and allow, tell me people, 2 weeks, 3 weeks for people to apply. I'm not sure what to do there. 2 or 3 weeks for people to apply, and then begin the interview process during the month of May and early June. I so move.
So let's hold that thought for a moment, Steve, if you don't mind. Pauline, through the chair, could we maybe make a motion and a vote to accept my resignation without the ability to rescind, and vote on that? And would that make people feel more comfortable?
You mean more comfortable getting started early?
Yeah.
I don't know if having a motion of you agreeing not to rescind is the way to go, just because it's putting a vote on someone's actions, but we don't, we can't hold you to it, even though we've made the motion to it. We can't hold you.
Even though she's asked, she's the one asking for it, for crying out loud,
I
Pauline.
understand, Steve, but it's not the point. I think what we could do, well, if we've got this motion on the table, we can have a second and then discussion with the timeline. And then I think that's the cleanest way to go, rather than putting anybody on the spot of saying, I'm saying my word and I'm not going to rescind. So I think it's just cleaner just to have the motion that Steve's put out.
Second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I mean, if somebody would like,
Is this a discussion, Steve? Or
yeah, well, it's a statement of technical fact, I think. If I recall my Robert's Rules of Order correctly, since I made the motion, if anybody would like me to change any of it, I'm allowed to do that. So if we could have some commentary about whether 2 weeks or 3 weeks to allow people to apply would seem to be more appropriate. I have no problem with 3 weeks for people to get in applications. Shall I make it 3 weeks? I hereby amend my motion to make it 3 weeks for
Can you
applicants to apply.
please repeat the whole motion?
I move that we begin the process of seeking a replacement for Zona by placing notice of applications on our website, Nantucket Public Schools, and in next Thursday's Inky Mirror with a 3-week timetable for people to apply, at which time we can begin the interview process. End of motion, because I don't think we can set a date for us to make a decision yet. We have to see how many applicants there'll be, the interview process. If all the interviews are going to have to be by Zoom, we just don't know when they're going to be able to be scheduled.
Steve, I
And-
second the motion. Stop talking.
So long as, so I
Okay,
got lost there, but as long as the interviews cannot happen before June 15th,
why?
because you're interviewing for something that is not open. And that is the whole purpose of what the attorney said and the mask representative said.
No, that's not what they said, Pauline. And I've got
No,
I
okay.
can read the wording to you from the lawyer. He says he believes it would be best practice. That doesn't mean it's against what the statute says. Now,
Okay, we'll go to a vote.
we have a motion. It's been
Yeah, it's been
seconded. We're
seconded,
having our
and then-
discussion.
Steve, your vote, please.
I'm in favor.
Jennifer, Jen?
Aye.
Zona?
Aye.
Tim?
Against.
And Pauline against. It passes 3-2.
Did Tim say he guesses or against? I didn't hear it.
Against.
Okay, so the motion passes. I don't know what the wording, just to follow up, I'm not sure what the wording is. Maybe the town can help us with the wording of the notice of application. Maybe Logan has an idea about that.
I've posted this twice before in the last decade, so I can take care of this. However, I will caution that I can't promise that it will make it into next week's paper because Monday is a holiday and I don't know if they'll accept anything tomorrow. And I don't know if I can get this done tomorrow. The superintendent is not present. I can try, but I just want to put that out there that if it
I
doesn't.
accept your disclaimer. I forgot Monday was a holiday.
Could be the
and
following
Look,
Thursday.
if it ends up being the following week in the Inky Mirror, that still is a good head start on what I believe we need to do.
Okay. All right, moving on to votes of the school committee, please. May I have a motion of vote approval, yes or no, to the selection of the school committee, school choice participation for the academic year?
May I ask a question? I'll move approval, but I don't know what we're approving. This is the
policy.
thing that we say no to every year.
Yes,
Is that right?
yes.
Have we actually got, who's the authority to whom we would send our conditions? Have we sent our conditions? Have we asked somebody whether they're acceptable? It looks like Logan may have
Logan?
the answer.
I've done this for the last 10 years that you voted no, and you vote no because we cannot have children commute to school. So the choice doesn't exist. So you vote no, I write the letter and I submit it to the Department of Education.
So why is all that stuff in there about the unless the following conditions are met? That's just we could have as an option a yes if or
Well,
a straightforward no.
You have to offer the option because every public school district, if they vote this policy in, has the option. But we're on an island 30 miles out to sea, so the option is a moot point.
Okay, then I move that we vote to not accept foreign students. I don't want to say foreign, out of district students in conformance with our policy.
Second.
Tim, may I have your vote?
I agree with Steve.
Vote.
Almost asleep.
Zona,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
Steve,
Amazingly, aye.
Pauline, aye. Thank you. Vote to approve donation to Nantucket High School from the Karp Family Foundation for an establishment of a scholarship fund for AP exams, specifically providing for those students who need assistance to help pay for exam fees. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
May I have a second? Second. Zona, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Steve,
Sorry, took my hand off the clicker. Aye.
thank you. Jen
Aye.
and Pauline, aye. Thank you. Approval, please, for the minutes of April 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Second, thank you. Tim, your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Jen?
Aye.
Thank you. Zona?
Aye.
Thank you. Steve?
Aye.
Thank you. Vote approval, please, for the transfers and invoices.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Zona, your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Tim, your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Jen, your vote? Thank you. And Steve, your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on to subcommittee work groups, meetings, policies, negotiations. Any updates or reports?
I can update on some negotiations. We believe, as I think Beth advised us, that we've all but completed, we've agreed on everything in the teaching assistant negotiations. I believe Beth and Paige are putting it all in writing so that we can bring it to the committee. And I have to say, I'm personally delighted because, of course, I claim to be done by Christmas, and I've been growing my Santa Claus beard, and I want to be rid of it. So the sooner we can get that to the committee, the better off we're going to be. And we believe we're done. And Beth has also proposed a date to start our negotiations with custodians, because we still have to do that this year as well. So progress on both fronts.
Great, good news. Anyone else with any reports?
Policy will be meeting soon. We have to come up with dates, Zona and I, to meet with Beth to review policy J. But that's in the works.
Okay.
Okay, what's policy J?
Look in your book, Steve. Let's go on.
So I have a couple of updates. We had the behavior health group that was facilitated by Deborah Gately. And that, you know, it's all of our principals, our social workers, our counselors, and really it was just a good discussion on the needs of our students. We had Fairwinds also represented, and a lot was just sort of catching up on the services that are provided for our students in school and out of school. It really is an important committee to have, and to have the same people sitting around a remote table to have those conversations. So I could only stay for the first hour of it, but it's always a very needed and worthwhile meeting. So thank you, Deborah, for running a very smooth meeting. Secondly, I think I told you at the last meeting that I was going to attend the legislative breakfast meeting, and I did. And it was interesting. I learned a little bit more about the ESSA 3 funds that are coming our way. I'm not going to even pretend to try and talk about it. That's really Beth and Martin's area. But I did go online to see that Nantucket is scheduled to receive more money in the ESSA 3 funds than we did with the ESSA 2, with a lot of focus of back to school learning and loss of learning during the pandemic. It was a mask held meeting, and they wanted to make sure that all school committees are working with the same priority of equity, inclusion, and diversity among the work that we do and our school districts. So it was good. It was a good meeting. And again, it's great to be part of those meetings because you don't have to travel off island. You can plug in for an hour and a half or 2 hours and hear from all of our counterparts, the other school districts in Division 7. So that's it. That's it for my report. We don't have Amanda Mack with us tonight. So I would
like to make a request, Madam Chair,
Sure.
rather than a shout out. And I guess the request is to you to speak with the superintendent about adding a school committee member or two to the director of ELL and athletic directors search committees. I emailed you because I knew Beth would not be here tonight. I'll be happy to forward her a copy of my email to you. In the past, at least during the term of Mr. Cozort, because I'm not going to pretend to remember before that, he has always asked if there were school committee members who would like to sit on those search committees. And I think these are important enough positions that the school committee ought to be involved. I know that we don't vote, that the selection is hers, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be on those committees. And I would urge you to urge her to invite a couple of school committee members to sit on those search committees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Tim, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Thank you, Zona.
Aye.
Thank you, Steve.
Aye.
Thank you, Jen.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you.